I'm Erin Jorick, and for today's video, I'll be giving you a few preparatory postures for Pincha Mayurasana or Forearm Balance. It's an inversion. And then I'll show you how I like to set up the posture in a few different ways. So Pincha Mayurasana, it's kind of a unique posture because it requires the shoulders to be very mobile. You need to be able to pretty easily get your arms into an overhead position. But you also need to be really strong to be able to hold yourself up. So the first little posture that I like to do just helps to open the shoulders and kind of give you some information about the shoulder position when you are working forearm balance. So you'll want 2 blocks. You can play with the height of the blocks. If you're a little less mobile, you might have the blocks at their lowest height. You may even skip the blocks completely and place your elbows flat on your mat. If you have a little bit more range of motion, you might play with slightly higher blocks. I'm going to take the blocks kind of at their medium height. You'll want your blocks no wider than shoulder distance apart, maybe even slightly narrower. And this is going to be a slight variation on puppy dog pose. It's kind of an elevated puppy dog pose. You'll place the middle of your elbows on the middle, your elbows in the middle of your blocks. You'll join your palms in a prayer position, and you'll want to scoot the knees back a little bit so you've got some clearance. And as you send your tail back, you'll let your chest kind of melt toward the floor, forehead toward the floor. And here, yes, it's a big stretch through the shoulders, kind of getting into the back a little bit. As you stretch the shoulders, you also want to engage the shoulders. You'll send your tail back, you'll dig your elbows down, and also give your elbows a little squeeze in towards each other. So tail back, elbows pressed down, squeeze the elbows in, and when you squeeze the elbows in, it just reinforces kind of the wrapping of your shoulder blades forward onto the rib cage. So a few breaths here, kind of get the shoulders to wake up a little bit. That's one preparatory posture I like to work in. And then another one is a variation on dolphin dog. So it's like a forearm downward facing dog. You'll lower your elbows all the way down to your mat, and you'll want your elbows no wider than shoulder distance apart. You could find that prayer position like you just did when you were up on the blocks. You might interlace your fingers, really either is fine for this. I'm just going to create a prayer position. You'll tuck your toes and lift your tail into dolphin dog. Now in dolphin dog, you really want to drive the floor away from you and lift your tail up and back so the armpits get really long and your head is elevated away from the floor. And sometimes working through scapular push-ups from this position can give you a lot of information. So if scapular push-ups, you'll let your head drop toward the floor. You'll notice my shoulder blades kind of pull up, and then you'll do the opposite. You'll push the floor away and let your shoulders and your armpits get really long. And you can kind of work through that a little bit. Head toward the floor, push, 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 and lift your tail. Head toward the floor, push, 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 lift your tail. And this pushing action, this is what you're trying to recreate when you are upside down in forearm balance. All right, so that's nice preparation for it. Then if you feel like you're ready to move up into your forearm balance, I'll show you kind of the traditional setup where the forearms and the hands are flat to the mat. But a little trick that I like that I learned, and it's really made a big difference for me in the posture, it's using a block or potentially 2 blocks. Taking the block sideways, so it's going to be at its lowest height. Taking the block like so, where your thumb and your index finger frame the block. For a lot of people, this is really helpful. But what starts to happen when you kick up is that you might start to lose control and the elbows do this little splaying action. And that's not really a great place to be resting all your body weight. So instead, you'll flip your hands around, so palms face the ceiling, and right away when you turn your palms facing upward, it narrows the position of your elbows, and it creates that really beautiful wrapping of the shoulder blades forward on the rib cage. So that's a really stable and sturdy place to be hanging out in when you're upside down. So if you have slightly wider shoulders, if you're a little broader through the chest, you might have to experiment a little bit with multiple blocks. Sometimes a single block can be a little too narrow, so you can experiment a little bit. So you got your block, palms face the ceiling, back of the forearms down, back of the hands down. You'll start in that dolphin dog position. And you might just stay here without even kicking up, kind of finding that scapular push-up action. Here, you can let the chest and the head kind of fall down, but then really work the opposite. Push, 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 lengthen your armpits. Then if you want to kick up, crawl your toes closer to you. Maybe one leg up, one leg down. I like to use a tiny bit of momentum to get on up. Legs go up. Push through the forearms, pull your belly in, squeeze the thighs together, and also squeeze your pinky fingers in toward the block. And you'll kind of see what are those? Thumbs. Thumbs are lifted a little bit, but you're really trying to get the back of the hand to rotate down. So I've got a little limitation in my range of motion. But so this might start to creep up a little bit. That's okay. And then last but not least, if you want to work without a block, it can be easier for some people because you actually have the grip of your fingers and you've got like this the sensation of how to stop yourself and give yourself breaks when your palms are down, when your fingers are down. So setting up this way, elbows a little narrower. I actually take the elbows narrower than the shoulder joints because as I kick up, naturally the elbows are going to kind of wing out. So you can start a little narrower. Spread your fingers really wide, get kind of grippy with your hands. You'll tuck your toes, lift your tail, finding that dolphin dog position. Crawl your feet in toward yourself. I like to look a little forward. One knee bent. A little kick up. Eventually both legs straight. You'll drive the floor away from you, so you're not collapsing down. You're pushing the floor away from you. Pull the belly in. Then come on out. It's a big posture. I like the posture over something like headstand because there's no weight in the head. But there's just a lot of moving parts and it requires, as I mentioned earlier, it does require pretty easy mobility with the arm in an overhead position and strength around the shoulder joint to actively push. So play with the preparatory postures. Maybe you go against a wall. You can do all of this stuff kicking to the wall. You can use a block with the wall. But yeah, try it out. Thanks for checking it out.